Hello, everyone.
This is Smoke the Podcast, episode 10.
We're glad to be back. Had a little bit of a break. It was about 3 weeks since our last podcast.
Yep.
Some vacations and things going out. So
Yeah.
we're a lot of developments in the gun community.
Yes.
Since we've been gone. Not like we've been gone, but
Yeah. Since
in
our
this
last
couple
episode.
weeks. So
yeah.
we're going to cover that. But the topics for today, the cigar that we are smoking is...
A Cinco Vegas, Connecticut Gold, or for those of you who do not speak Spanish, it is a 5 Vegas.
And in the glass, we're going to have Maker's Mark tonight. Just regular old Maker's Mark.
Nothing wrong with that.
And our firearms topic of the day, the triggered topic, is the roller coaster of a ride, the standard capacity magazines that were legal in California, and well, you got to stay tuned to kind of figure out what happened on all
Keep
that.
listening. Yeah, it's going to be good.
So what's up with this cigar? Go ahead and tell us about it.
So the Cinco Vegas Connecticut Gold. I'm going to just read a description here that we got on Cigar International, which, as you guys are coming to learn, is our favorite website for cigars and getting cigars, buying cigars. Teddy's going to pour the whiskey. Let me read this out here. So this is a quote here. A slight nutty taste in this one, followed by some zesty peppery notes on the back of the palate. A feisty sucker. But instantly it mellows into a polished smoothness and ample creaminess. It stays utterly consistent from here on out, well balanced with a sturdy, creamy foundation, and booms out thick clouds. What a charmer. Right around medium it is, not super mellow, but just shy of a middleweight. End quote. These cigars here we're actually smoking Churchills tonight, which is one of the, actually I would argue the most popular size of cigar. They're 7 inches long and a 50 ring gauge, Honduran filler and binder, Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper. Although these came in a Connecticut sampler package, this one's actually going to be a middleweight Connecticut, so it's going to actually be more medium bodied. These are going to be stronger than what we're used to. Although, according to what I'm reading here, they should be pretty mild for a medium-bodied cigar.
Yeah, I mean, just from the initial light, medium body sounds about right. I don't know about the strength.
Yeah.
As far as the flavor, though, medium body is definitely it.
Yeah.
I do have the peppery notes. The smell of the cigar, just smelling the wrapper, it's got a little chocolatey.
It's
a little barnyard to it.
Yeah, a little chocolate, a little of that kind of like hay or barnyard kind of scent to it. Definitely, when they say zesty, I'm definitely getting that. I'm already getting kind of the prickles on my tongue and things like that, like you would when eating some pepper or something like that. I don't want to say spicy because that's the wrong description, but you can definitely taste it.
Well, I mean, I've had cigars that I feel are spicy, and if I describe something as spicy, it's usually the heat without the peppery flavor.
Right.
Where this has kind of like the distinct black pepper flavor.
Yeah, it does.
A little bit of it, yeah.
What is interesting here is it says it booms out thick clouds of smoke. I'm actually not getting that at all. Mine's pretty tight on the draw. And I don't know if I think that has something to do with it. But yeah.
It could be. Mine's got a tight draw also.
Yeah. But we use the...
I don't smoke Churchills too much, so I don't know if that's something common in Churchills. Because I seem to smoke... Or maybe because this one's so long, it seems like I smoke thicker ring gauge cigars.
Right, and shorter too. So
and shorter, yeah.
The length of distance. I mean, and we're talking in a mere inch or 2 inches at the most. The length of distance between where your actual heat center is, the lit end of the cigar to the draw, is a lot longer. So you're actually having to use a bit more force to get out more smoke. But we'll see as it goes. We have a huge topic that we're going to be talking about today for our triggered topic. So we're probably going to just quickly revisit the cigar and whiskey tonight, just so you guys are aware.
So we have a little longer of a cigar than normal.
Exactly.
So in the glass, we just, like I said, regular old Maker's Mark. Those of you who know, I'm a Makers 46 fan.
Yeah.
And this is, I would say, their step down. They're, it's just their
well,
standard.
it's just their run-of-the-mill.
Yeah, their run-of-the-mill bourbon.
Yeah.
So you can find it for about $20. That's basically kind of where it runs. So the description from Breaking Bourbon. On the nose, you have notes of vanilla, caramel, or caramel, however you say it, brown sugar, and even a bit of strawberry. We'll see. On the palate, notes of toffee, vanilla, and oak are the most prevalent, with fainter hints of toasted nut and cinnamon. Overall, it has a thin but buttery mouthfeel. That goes down smooth, and the finish, the palate's flavors that carry over to the finish are by no means deep and layered, but overall they're pleasant and hard to find fault with. So basically, Maker's Mark is just pretty simple bourbon.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing too special.
There was something on Breaking Bourbon when I looked up the notes, saying that if you ask for a bourbon in a bar, more than likely you're either going to get Maker's Mark or Jim Beam. So, cheers.
Let's see on the nose. I guess I can get a little bit of that strawberry. That's
I was going to say fruit,
yeah.
But yeah, now that I read that, yeah, strawberry, vanilla as well.
I mean, I got a lot of oak.
yeah, a lot of oak in mine.
Yeah, oak and toasted nuts probably.
Yeah, that. Now I know why I like Maker's 46. It's definitely smoother.
This is a little rougher going down. But
I will say this though, the finish doesn't last. Like, I mean, it's gone. And so it says that it carries over to the finish, but are by no means deep and layered. The finish actually was probably the best part of that sip that I just had, as it kind of faded out, and then the sharpness of the oak and the toasted nut flavors kind of start to diminish a little bit, and then it starts to go, oh, that's good. I feel like I'm going to enjoy this more once the ice melts.
Well, most likely. I mean, that's usually what happens with me anyway.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Just a couple of facts. It's 90 proof. And Maker's Mark has a trademark on the red dripped wax.
Yes. So to specify, other companies can use wax to seal their bottles. They cannot drip the wax, though, the way that Maker's Mark does. And they're all unique, too. They're not the same, obviously, because they just get dipped and turned upside down. So that's pretty cool. That's
always been something that has fascinated me with Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
I've always liked that. That's something that's always been pretty cool. I thought.
It is pretty cool. Well, before we get into our triggered firearms topic of the day, I just wanted to take a quick moment to revisit something that we talked about in a few of the other episodes, but just a quick pitch for those of you who are listeners and are interested in going hunting for this coming season. Seasons in California for hunting start July 1st of every year, so it's more like a school year where you have this year it'll be 2019-2020 season together. What I was going to say is, though, for those of you that are interested, you may want to consider signing up for hunter safety courses within the next couple months. The closer we get to the opening of the season, which is for us who do small game, it's going to be cottontail July 1st. But then obviously as we get closer to September 1st with dove season, classes start filling up. They get packed and it's hard to get into classes close by. So I always recommend, even though we're still like 6 months out, start planning, because it'll take you a month probably to get into a class. Like saying that they're scheduled like a month out.
Yeah,
so.
It's typical for beginning hunters to start at bird hunting. So the start of bird hunting season is when it's going to
start really picking up. They get really busy. So that's all I had to say. I just wanted to let our listeners know who are interested in hunting. Go online, look up California Hunter Safety or Hunter's Ed. You'll find a bunch of different resources and links. If you have any questions, let us know. We can always post something on our Facebook or on Instagram in regards to it as well. But now on to the triggered firearms topic.
I'll just start off by asking what happened.
Okay.
What happened in this roller coaster a couple of weeks?
Yeah, so to summarize, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give a really brief explanation. Then we're going to go through it kind of step by step, what happened in the last week. And then we're going to kind of talk about our personal experience with the entire event. And then before we get into it, another thing I'd like to note is this is episode 10. So this is kind of a little bit of a milestone for Theodore and myself, and for Smoke the Podcast. And so we actually had a really cool episode 10 planned. We were gonna smoke some really special cigars and drink some very special whiskey. We'll get to that, I guess, another time.
Yeah.
And we had a great topic planned. And we had everything ready to go, and we were getting everything prepped this last week, preparing for the recording tonight. And then all of a sudden we had some crazy developments in California with some gun laws, and so we decided to scratch the whole episode and bring you this one. And so we're going to do the best that we possibly can to try and give you our interpretation of what has happened.
That's the key word, our interpretation.
Yes, we again, as we've said on many episodes before, we're not lawyers, we're not experts, we're just two guys that are hunting and shooting sports enthusiasts. So we're just going to give you our interpretation, the layman's interpretation of kind of what's going on.
Yep,
so
just regular old gun owners.
yeah, just California citizens. So, so yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So basically, today's topic, we're going to be talking about standard capacity magazines in California. For those California listeners out there, what we mean by standard capacity is what is referred to commonly here in California as high capacity. Basically what that means is anything over 10 rounds, any magazine that carries more than 10 rounds. And so that's kind of what we're going to be kind of talking about today. So the brief overview is basically from March 29th, 2019 to April 5th, 2019. So for 1 week, standard capacity, aka high capacity in California, standard capacity magazines were legal to purchase and possess in the state. This was due to a ruling by U.S. District Judge Roger Benitez, and I hope I'm not butchering that. Benitez, yeah. Declaring the California large capacity magazine laws unconstitutional. So basically what this means in short, even shorter than that, is that high capacity or standard capacity, whichever you want to call it, were legal to purchase for 1 week in California due to this U.S., so a federal district judge, stating that the California laws are unconstitutional. So why it only lasted for 1 week, we'll get into that. But yeah, so let's...
so let's start off by what were the laws, or what was California subject to before this ruling? Okay,
so I have the law here, and I'm going to read it pretty much. Well, it's not verbatim. I've paraphrased it. It's going to be a lot of legalese, so please bear with me. But I think it's very important because it's the foundation of the entire argument that kind of took place this week. So these were enacted, I believe, in 2016. But they were set to kind of go into effect in 2017. And for those of you who don't know, since 2000, since the year 2000, there's been a high capacity magazine ban or standard capacity magazine ban in California. However, in 2000, anyone who had purchased standard capacity, high capacity magazines prior to 2000 were able to have them and keep them grandfathered in.
Yes, anything prior to the law.
Yeah, so they could still possess them, but you couldn't purchase anymore after the year 2000. So...
or bring them in from another state.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, so manufacture, purchase, import, things like that. You couldn't do that. And then the other thing that you couldn't do as well is, let's say you had someone who had some grandfathered in high capacity magazines. They couldn't give them to another person to hold for them in their possession. So you couldn't even have them in possession if they weren't yours that you had purchased. So anyways, let's look at Article 1. So this is rules governing large capacity magazines. This is Penal Code Section 32310 in the state of California. Part A says any person in California who manufactures, imports, keeps, offers, and exposes for sale, or who gives, lends, buys, or receives any large capacity magazine is punishable by imprisonment in a county jail not exceeding 1 year or not exceeding 1 year of imprisonment. Part B says, for purposes of this section, manufacturing includes both fabricating a magazine and assembling a magazine from a combination of parts, including but not limited to the body, spring, follower, floor plate, or end plate, to be fully functioning as a large capacity magazine. C, any person in the state who possesses any large capacity magazine, regardless of the date the magazine was acquired, is guilty of an infraction punishable by a fine not to exceed $100 per large capacity magazine, or is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by a fine not to exceed $100 per large capacity magazine, by imprisonment in a county jail not to exceed 1 year, by both that fine and imprisonment. Part D says any person who may not lawfully possess a large capacity magazine commencing on July 1st, 2017 shall, prior to that date, 1, remove the large capacity magazine from the state, 2, sell the large capacity magazine to a licensed firearm dealer, or 3, surrender the large capacity magazine to a law enforcement agency for proper destruction. So again, this was amended in 2016. So prior to that, like I said, you could possess them, you just couldn't purchase, import, manufacture them. And this was after that fact. Now, if we look at the next section of the penal code, so there's a whole bunch of codes that correspond, but these are the two main ones. This is Penal Code Section 32311. This one deals with magazine conversion kits. I'm not going to read it. It's all the same thing as far as manufacturing, importing, blah, 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 blah. But basically, it's the same thing. For the purposes of that section, a large capacity magazine conversion kit, quoted, is a device or combination of parts of a fully functioning large capacity magazine, including but not limited to the body, spring, follower, foreplate, or end plate, capable of converting an ammunition feeding device into a large capacity magazine. So those were the current laws that were on the books, and again, that was kind of upsetting for those that were grandfathered in for 17 years.
Yeah.
And then they took place in 2017. This same judge that we're going to be talking about tonight, Benitez, he had filed an injunction, though, to where the people that did grandfather in weren't going to have to give possession immediately until the appeals process had been completed. And then again, we're further into that now in 2019. So yeah, that's the law as far as what it says. States.
And that's as it stood before March 29th?
Before March 29th, that was exactly as it stood. Yes.
Okay, so that's a lot to take in.
It is.
But from what I gather, they're just basically trying to make it so any large capacity magazine really just can't be possessed at all. I mean, when the law came in with 2000, the grandfathered in magazines were all okay. The problem I see with that law and with a lot of California laws is they pass the laws without no real way of enforcing it. And with the magazines, that's always kind of been a weird one, because how do they know when you got your magazines, or
right?
Any of that information? Yeah,
during that 17-year period where the grandfather clause was in effect, I mean, essentially. And again, not recommending that someone do this, but anyone could have picked up a magazine dated prior, because a lot of them are date stamped, but dated prior to that time period, and been like, I got them before they were grandfathered in, So that's always. I mean, there's, you know what I mean? So, and the state in this case would have the burden of proof to prove that no, you didn't, and. I mean, there's just no way to track it, especially with cash and just being able to, purchase things like that. So,
as far as March 29th, what was the ruling? What happened that day?
So March 29th was a pretty crazy day. I remember, in fact, messaging you and a couple of our cousins and letting you guys know, oh my gosh, did you guys see the story that just popped up on the news? And it was actually quite funny. Because the first few news agencies I saw are known for typically being more right-leaning. I did not see it on any of the more left-leaning news outlets until after it was really in effect. And then their articles, the their articles were kind of in a panic. But basically what happened was the ruling stated that day, U.S. District Judge Benitez ruled that 10-round limits on magazines are unconstitutional. Straight up just violation of the Constitution, violation of our Second Amendment rights. As American citizens, not as Californians, but as American citizens. The great thing about it is, even though in this case it really only affected California, it doesn't affect some of the other states that do have these laws on the books as well. It sets precedent, though, for later cases as being unconstitutional, which is good. So that's a good thing. In his ruling, he actually cited 3 instances where females were attacked. And in 2 of the instances, he mentioned that the 2 females did not have enough ammo to properly defend against the assailants and became victims. Now, I don't want to go into detail on any of that, but let's just say that at the end of the day, being a victim is never something that you want. So that was his reasoning, is that these 2 women had low capacity magazines, did not have enough ammo, and unfortunately were victims of crime. In the 3rd instance, he cited 1 female who was carrying a large capacity, high capacity, standard capacity magazine.
We'll just refer to them as standard capacity.
Standard capacity now. And she had enough bullets to where she was able to successfully defeat her combatants, and therefore was not a victim of crime. In that particular case, I believe she was wearing a nightgown that did not have pockets to carry an extra magazine, and she was holding a cell phone while on the phone with 911, and so she didn't have an extra hand to reload. And so in that case, it was very necessary for her to have the extra rounds to deal with these criminals that were essentially coming to cause her serious bodily injury or death.
So going back to the ruling and to the beginning of this whole thing, it was interesting because I first heard of it from, I believe, a family member who sent a text or an email, and a lot of times I don't necessarily. I always got to do the research. So my initial thought was, they overturned the grandfathered in magazines. Like that whole portion of it is what they were talking about.
Right.
Because I know a lot of people kind of, especially in California, if you don't know a lot about the laws, sometimes things sound like victories that really aren't big victories.
Yeah.
And I think a couple years ago, when the 2017 laws were trying to go into effect, they tried to put a block, and everybody was saying, we're going to get, the standard capacity magazines. And then when you read into it, you're like, oh, no, they're just blocking the fact that the grandfathered in magazines don't have to be destroyed or turned into the police.
Yeah.
So my initial thought was 100% like, oh, yeah, there's no way that this is real.
Yeah, it was a lot of skepticism.
Yeah, because I live in California. I've been through it.
Well, I just feel like we deal with a lot of false alarms out here. Yeah. Yeah,
I think people are so starved for freedom that they sometimes overreact a little bit.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people don't read. I mean, in reality, they see it on Facebook and go, "Oh my gosh, this is what it is." Read the headline and don't bother reading it into it. But
so it took about a day or two for me to realize that. Actually, it took stores selling them for me, because I figured once the stores sold them, that they're not going to risk their store.
And you're talking
to sell something illegal.
Brick and mortar California stores.
Yes, brick and mortar California stores.
Yeah,
and even online stores, because they won't ship to you if you're in California if it's illegal.
Well, that was the crazy part for me, because I heard it as well, and I think I had spoken with you that day about it, and then I wasn't skeptical at first because I had read through it and said, no, this is what it says. And then you had me doubting myself for a little while. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, maybe I did get overexcited. And I read through it again. I go, no, I think that's right. And it was confirmed to me. I think it was the next day. So it would have been the 30th, which was a Saturday. when I saw that, I believe it was Palmetto State Armory via Mr. Guns and Gears.
Oh yeah, shout out to Mr. Guns and Gear.
Yeah, Mr. Guns and Gear.
He really came through with this one and posting a bunch of deals and really and showing his support for us Californians.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, and we'll go more into that as we get further into the topic. But it's pretty crazy. After I started seeing that he had posted that he had confirmed with a few different sites, and like I said, I believe Palmetto State Armory was one of the first ones. I don't know if they were the first, but I know they were definitely one of the very first companies that said, absolutely, our lawyers have looked over everything. We're going to start shipping magazines immediately. Place your orders. So that was actually really cool, and that's kind of when it rang a bell with me, like, okay, this is real. And then when I started noticing, that the brick and mortar stores in California are saying we're receiving shipments in a day or two from Magpul, from Surefire, from a lot of these companies, I'm going, wow, this is for real. This is absolutely 100% real. So that was pretty cool. So that essentially was the outcome of the ruling.
Yeah.
It was crazy how quickly things were being updated within matters of minutes. I know Mr. Guns and Gear. And the only reason why we'll probably continue to mention him is he was 100% on the forefront of informing people. He made so many videos and was just really good about informing the Californians, but also the rest of the nation who has no idea what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I find that a lot of the community that doesn't live in California, I don't know if they completely understand. A lot of you hear a lot of, well, just move to a free state. It's like, well, I got family here and stuff.
Family, work.
I've got
you can't just always move and things like that. And so that was pretty cool. And again, we'll get into that a little bit more. But that was pretty neat to see all of that and to see essentially all the standard capacity mags flooding into California. That was awesome.
And I think the outpouring of support too, or maybe not even support, but just cries for help from like New York and states like New Jersey, where they have, I think, 7-round magazine laws that might have given them a little bit of hope.
That maybe there is something possible that could be done. But again, we'll get into that more of just some of the stuff that we saw and heard during this time. So basically, again, we had this ruling. Standard capacity magazines should be legal. It's unconstitutional to have a ban on them. The outcome was that magazines started pouring into California and were legal to purchase and possess. So now, essentially, this was like an absolute nightmare for the state of California, as far as the government goes. The people, all the behind enemy lines, Second Amendment supporters here in California were pretty excited, but the state, the government portion of the state was definitely not thrilled about it. In fact, Gavin Newsom, our governor, was pretty upset. I have a quote here from him. Stating that this district court judge's failure to uphold a ban on high-capacity magazines is indefensible, dangerous for our communities, and contradicts well-established case law. I strongly disagree with the court's assessment that the problem of mass shootings is very small. Our commitment to public safety and defending common-sense gun safety laws remains steadfast. Well said, Gavin. Well said.
I like your... I don't even know how he talks. So
I don't know how he talks either. I have no idea either, but that's just... And then our Attorney General, Mr. Javier Becerra, said, and I quote, "California leads the nation when it comes to common sense gun laws. We should all be ensuring the safety of our communities, not fighting against long-standing laws that improve public safety."
Well, I will agree 100% that we lead the nation in gun laws.
Yeah, seriously.
Now, whether that's a good or bad thing is, I think we agree on that. We disagree on that 100% also.
Absolutely.
But...
So the cliff notes on this is basically the Attorney General, who in reality, yes, the governor runs California, but in this particular case, the Attorney General, it's his job, so to speak, to handle an issue like this. And he basically wanted to halt all magazine sales that were coming in as a result of the ruling. In fact, he stated that it would be hard, essentially, to remove all the magazines that were now going to be flooding into California. And that was the main reason why he wanted to fight it. So he filed for a stay, which in legal terms, a stay just means basically going back to the way it was until an appeal process is completed. And so he wanted the stay as early as April 2nd. And in his reasoning for the stay, he cited multiple shootings since 2011 with standard capacity magazines. That was his main reason for it. And then also...
Wait, so I have a question.
Yes.
If standard capacity magazines are illegal, then how did they get into the state?
I wonder if it has anything to do with the argument that criminals do what they want. That criminals are not law-abiding citizens. Who would have thought that, right?
Thought that, yeah. Well.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, and in fact, to commentate on that a little bit, I did some research, and I happened to stumble across a peer-reviewed article labeled Large Capacity Magazines and the Casualty Counts in Mass Shootings, the Plausibility of the Linkages. This was published in Justice, Research, and Policy, Volume Issue 17. Sorry, my bad. Justice, Research, and Policy, Volume 17, Issue 1, pages 28 through 47. I read through the whole thing. I'm not going to read through the whole thing on here because it would take quite a while, but I am going to read a portion of the abstract, which essentially, for those of you that don't know, an abstract is a summary or the cliff notes, so to speak, of a peer-reviewed article. So this basically just gives you an outline of what's in the article. But this was written by Gary Kleck, which he's a professor at the College of Criminology and Criminal Justice at Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. And so he basically just writes that the most common rationale for an effect of LCMs, or large capacity magazines, the use of them is that they allow mass killers to fire many rounds without ever reloading. LCMs are known to have been used in less than 1/3 of 1% of all mass shootings in reality. News accounts of 23 shootings in which more than 6 people were killed or wounded, and LCMs were known to have been used, occurring in the United States in 1994 to 2013, were examined in this study. There was only one incident in which the shooter may have been stopped by bystander intervention when he tried to reload. In all 23 incidents, the shooter possessed either multiple guns or multiple magazines, meaning that the shooter, even if denied LCMs, could have continued firing without significant interruption by either switching loaded guns or changing smaller loaded magazines with only a 2 to 4 second delay for each magazine change. Finally, the data indicate that mass shooters maintain such slow rates of fire that the time needed to reload would not increase the time between shots and thus the time available for prospective victims to escape. So to summarize, basically what he's saying is that large capacity magazines were actually only used in less than 1/3 of 1% of all mass shootings. So that's like 0.3%.
Yes, 0.03.
0.03, yeah. My bad. Sorry, 0.03%, which is pretty small. He noted 23 shootings from 1994 to 2013, and he also noted that they had either multiple guns or multiple magazines in those cases. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you were going to go on a mass shooting, if someone were to go on a mass shooting, a criminal, right, were to go on a mass shooting, and they were going to take multiple guns with the intention to kill somebody else, do you think that they would be worried about getting a felony or misdemeanor charge for carrying a large capacity magazine? No. That's the least of their concerns. Yeah. So
that and is he saying that essentially that it's not effective? Yeah. Really. Yeah. For on offensive as it is.
It's
defense.
Better for defensive shooting. In fact, I read through the whole article, like I said, and one of the things that he noted, he said, both unfortunately, but more so fortunately, thank God we have no way to test this. Yeah. Which is great. I mean, there's no real way to test, okay, how many rounds can we, and this and that. because it's not like warfare. It's a completely different style of an attack. And so what he was saying, though, is that if you actually look at videos, at timelines of things, the amount of shots being fired are less than what you would need for a large capacity magazine. And on top of that, if you were firing as many rounds downrange as possible, it actually reduces your accuracy.
Yes.
And so that was also one of the things that he noted as well. He found that, yes, that they are far more useful for defensive situations. And so the fact that the stay, the whole reason why I bring this up is the fact that the stay, that was the actual, one of the real reasons is that, these magazines are going to be flooding into California, and we want to stop mass shootings. And that's why we think that they shouldn't be coming into California, is because now mass shooters can get a hold of them and go shoot people. We've already talked on I think one episode or 2 episodes about mass shootings and how many of the guns acquired are illegal. And so at the same time, again, to stop them from acquiring illegal,
Yeah, I think...
So I just don't think that that's a very strong basis for that argument.
No, and I think, in my opinion, if I think about it logically, someone who's going to commit a mass shooting or terrible crime like that, it's a matter of having the ammunition on you. So regardless if they're in 10-round magazines or in 15-round magazines, they're going to carry enough. I mean, even if they carried it out and were concerned about the law, and they said, okay, well, since I can't have standard capacity, I'll bring 10-rounders.
They're going to bring enough
of them to do the damage that they want to do.
Yeah.
Where my argument is the reason why I would like standard capacity magazines is because I'm not going out with the intention of ever doing anything to anybody. But I want to have the ammo on me in case I need to protect myself. So the more ammo that I can have conveniently, the better it is for me.
Yeah.
So if I can carry 15 rounds in my magazine, in my gun, that's 5 more rounds than a 10-round magazine would allow me to have, obviously. And I wouldn't even have to carry, like an extra magazine.
Right.
So, it really helps me out to have the standard capacity magazine, where it's not really as much of a benefit to the mass shooter.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because they're expecting to expend all that.
The article
ammunition.
Yeah, the article went into a little more detail too, in the fact that in all the mass shootings that you see, the intention is to inflict mass casualties, not to shoot as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes, I mean, we've looked at this before, but oftentimes they're using handguns or shotguns. They're not even using things like AR-15s, where the lethality rate might be a little higher at a distance, but these guys are typically in close quarter situations, and so they want to use something that's going to devastate, like a shotgun.
Yeah, in close quarter situations, because they have no fear of going up to somebody and shooting them,
right,
because they know they're not going to get shot back.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in a gun-free zone, nobody has guns. They know this already.
Right, and that's why typically they target those types of things. And again, this is more about the magazines and a lot less about the mass shootings. But we have to bring it up because that is one of the arguments that's used, in fact. And I think Judge Benitez is right when he said that there's such a small fraction of the actual gun violence that goes on. I mean, he talked about things such as just general violent crime, carjackings, robberies, rapes, and attempted murders, assault and battery, things like that, where people are injured or even killed on a daily basis just going about their day-to-day lives, and could have had the opportunity to maybe defend themselves if they were concealed carrying. And let's say you have 3 assailants coming towards you in to rob a liquor store or just anything for that matter. Having only 10 rounds might not be effective. And a lot of people think, well, if you shoot someone once, then they might go down. And it's possible. It's a definite possibility.
Even if you shoot somebody, I've heard this example, like if you shoot somebody and it's lethal, that doesn't necessarily mean it stopped them. So, for example, you can shoot somebody and even if you shot them on an operating table with a doctor, they would still die from that wound.
Right.
But they're not going to die immediately.
No.
So if you shoot somebody in defense, they can still potentially hurt you.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to mention you have...
even with a lethal wound.
Right. And that's assuming perfect case scenario that you're able to assess the threat, realize that it's a deadly threat, draw your firearm, fire, hit the assailant or this suspect or whatever, and put them on the ground. That would be perfect case scenario.
Yes.
Most of the time, you might not even know that they're an assailant until the last minute or until it's too late. You might not be able to draw and fire quick enough. Your adrenaline might get your hands shaking too much. People that are not trained to deal with live fire situations are not going to react all the same. Everyone's different, and so you may not be accurate. I mean, there's so many recorded incidents with officer-involved shootings where the officer draws a Beretta and fires 16 rounds or whatever whatever magazine he has in there, and none of them hit the suspect because you have all these other factors that go into it. And so having those extra rounds can make all the difference in the world. I mean, I think for me, if someone was going to come into my house in the middle of the night and do like a home invasion robbery type thing, I try and think to myself, okay, I'd be half asleep, so I wouldn't be alert. It'd probably be dark in my home, and yes, I know the layout better than someone who might be coming into my home. But what's to say that I'm going to be able to react swiftly and accurately, And so even having the extra rounds, not even necessarily to shoot or hit the assailant, but mainly just to keep them pinned down in an area while my wife or family or friends or whoever is in that area can get away, and give me enough time to also get away with 10 rounds, also having to reload, things like that. That can pose for a tough situation. And in reality, to me, this whole thing, a lot of people were a lot more concerned about getting the AR-15 and the AK-47 magazines, the 30 rounders, and that's important too. But to me, I would actually wager that a 16 round 9mm magazine was more useful to me in this.
That's what I was looking for. I mean, that's what I wanted, was just standard capacity pistol magazines. The 30 rounders for the ARs and stuff.
And those
were
are
secondary, even though I would find them useful. But
absolutely, they'd be useful. But in reality, in both of our situations, I don't think that an AR-15 would be the best to defend our homes or things like that. Just based on our situation. Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say something.
Sorry, we probably went off onto a tangent there, but it is all important because it all pertains. So.
Anyway, we'll just move on. I completely forgot what I was going to say.
No worries. If you get it back, we'll circle back to it. But so essentially the state responded, and they were very upset with everything. It was very negative and just did not care at all about the law-abiding citizens that live in this state that have to deal with the crime that's in the streets here and deal with the fact that, I mean, essentially we are being denied rights, our Second Amendment rights. And so that kind of sucked. So the final... Oh, you got it.
I do got it.
Okay, you got it.
I was going to go back to the kind of like another reason why we would need them is you look at tactics of trained people and of like mass shooters.
Yeah.
And going back to the fear thing where like a mass shooter doesn't have a fear of getting shot.
Right.
So they're not necessarily hiding or trying to find cover or doing any of that.
Yeah.
And trying to take longer shots. They're basically walking up to people and shooting them.
Right.
And so really that kind of takes the whole standard capacity magazine out, because I mean, if you're walking up to somebody and shooting them, I mean, your chances of hitting your target are a lot higher because they have no fear of getting shot, and a lot of them want to die anyway.
Yeah.
Where people like us and police officers, or if somebody happens to be concealed carrying, they're not trying to get shot.
No.
They're trying to hide, and they're trying to be as tactical as possible.
Absolutely.
And those extra rounds can make a difference. I mean,
Well, and yeah, absolutely. You're spot on with that. I mean, I think in fact, if you were to talk to most police officers or even military, a lot of what they're going to teach is suppressing fire. In fact, you're not really even initially, you're not even really hitting or shooting to hit the target so much as to get the target to a position where they're now subdued. And now you can make a tactical move to get towards them or get to a position where now you can take a shot that would neutralize the target. And so I think you're right. Having those extra rounds makes all the difference in the world.
Yes, definitely. So before we move on to the state of things right now.
Okay, so the final outcome.
Let's revisit this cigar. And the only reason we kind of talked about this before and thought like, okay, well, we won't maybe talk about the cigar too much and we'll kind of stick on topic. But I'm really enjoying this. I mean, I don't have to babysit this thing at all. It's burning perfectly. The draw is loosened up a little bit, still a little bit tight, but I mean, just really, really good.
Yeah. Honestly, the draw is not bad. It's not what I prefer, but it's really not bad at all. I do prefer a little bit looser of a draw, but you're right. I haven't had to babysit. The only relight I had to do was when I was reading those laws, but that's because I took a good 3 to 4 minutes of not puffing on the cigar. But surprisingly, it tastes, and just the scent that I'm getting, normally I can't really smell the smoke when I'm smoking a cigar, but if someone next to me is smoking it, I can smell it. This one, I feel like I'm actually getting a lot of really good aroma off of. The flavor's all there. It's got the mild flavor, but I'm not noticing. It's got a medium-bodied flavor, but I'm not noticing the medium-bodied kick.
Yeah, the strength still seems pretty mild to me.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not one of those ones that
sneaks
they hit you all at once.
Where it sneaks up on you.
Maybe I should stand up a couple times in between and see if I have any head.
No, I'm definitely taking this one a little easier than I probably normally would, but it's also a much longer cigar, and we've got a lot to talk about. So.
Yeah. So, what is the final outcome? What are the state of California right now, as far as magazine capacity goes?
We are actually, and I wouldn't normally do this, but we're actually recording on April 6th, 2019. This will probably go out sometime next week, so probably like the 8th or the 9th. And as of right now, so we heard, obviously, the ruling that standard capacity magazines are legal or should be legal, and that the ban on them is unconstitutional. Magazines started flooding into the state. The state government responded. California government responded, asking for it to stop, to have there be a stay on the sale and importation. And so Judge Benitez, who I would also like to say thank you to him as well.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people had mixed issues on this, but personally, I think it was the right move. He then returned back to the court and issued the stay, which a lot of people were very upset about. Well, you ruled it unconstitutional, and now you're saying that we can't have these magazines or can't buy these magazines anymore. Well, the reason why he did that in all actuality was because it would have shot straight up to the higher district court. I think it's the 9th District of Appeals.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on it. But and they were more than likely just to ban everything altogether, go right back to the ban the way it was. And so this way, by putting this stay out there, what he did was bought, I think it was an additional 24 hours for Californians to buy whatever magazines that they could. So I have to say thank you for him to thinking of all of us and allowing us to have the week to purchase what we rightfully are,
Yeah, because the
guaranteed.
stay was effective April 5th at 5 p.m.
So it took effect April 5th at 5 p.m. So that was Friday at 5 p.m.
Yeah, and they originally wanted it with the 2nd?
And then from the 2nd, it got pushed back to the 4th. They were saying, okay, the 3rd. Every day, basically, they were pushing it back. No, we want it effective the 2nd. No, we want it effective the 3rd. Just get it done ASAP, and that's what the state was pushing for. And they were basically going to circumvent this judge and go up above his head, so to speak, and we're gonna basically just get a ban put back in place. And so he issued the stay. I think it was on the 4th, but it didn't go into effect until April 5th at 5 p.m.
Yeah,
now, this is
definitely on the 4th because I remember seeing
24 hours to get all your stuff. I know a lot of the brick and mortar stores stayed open late. They hired temps and people like that to help sell as many magazines as they possibly could, which was pretty crazy. It was basically, the idea is we're going to just have this stay effective on April 5th at 5 p.m. pending the appeal. That being said, Benitez did not comply did not have his stay include possession, which is also a huge win for California. So initially, the original stay was, okay, no more purchases, no more manufacturing, no more importing, nothing like that, and no more possession. Have all the people that bought them get rid of their magazines. And he said, absolutely not. It was legal for 7 days. They can possess now. But no more purchase, no more manufacturing, no more importing. And again, like I said, there were a lot of people that were like, this is so wrong. Why would he go back on his word? It was actually for the benefit of California, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think it really just got the ball rolling for me. When he ruled it unconstitutional, that got the ball rolling. So this hopefully he can win the appeal, and then it just become effective permanently. So,
just some notes that I found on the Courthouse News Service. This was an article by Bianca Bruno. This is definitely paraphrased. This is not word for word, but just some of her notes that I was able to find. That Benitez found the state can resume enforcing the 2000 state law, not the 2017, but the 2000 state law, barring the importation, manufacturing, sale, gifting, lending, or buying of gun magazines with more than 10 rounds of ammunition pending a proper appeal process. Again, he protected those who had already purchased, imported, manufactured, etc., any magazines by not requiring them to give them up, which was really cool. The law criminalizing the importation or sale of high-capacity magazines was reinstated on April 5th at 5 p.m. In his order, Benitez wrote, "The court understands that strong emotions are felt by people of goodwill on both sides of the constitutional and social policy questions. The court understands that thoughtful and law-abiding citizens can and do firmly hold competing opinions on firearm magazine restrictions. These concerns augur in favor of judicial deliberation. There is an immeasurable societal benefit of maintaining the immediate status quo while the process of judicial review takes place." So it's obvious that he realizes that there are two sides of this and that it does need to be properly argued in court.
Yeah, and for those that maybe know me personally, that's always kind of been my thing is, let's talk about it, let's argue about it. And kind of, you see a lot of the gun community, putting down other people that don't necessarily agree with them. And my stance is usually they just don't know. And it could be the other way around, maybe we just don't know. But, I just think that, when presented with something, when presented with this argument, do you want to keep the streets more dangerous, or do you want to keep it safer? If you think that you're by cutting down the magazine capacity is going to make you safer because you don't really know anything about guns, or you don't really know anything about you just don't have a lot of experience with it, then I don't necessarily blame you for voting for that. You know what I mean? I can understand why. So the purpose is to kind of educate people. And so hopefully we can get that out there and show, this is why we need this. This is why it's good for us to have standard capacity magazines, to protect ourselves and other people. Mainly I want to protect me and my family. But, if something happens and, I'm in protecting myself, I could be protecting somebody else too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Just, it's just good to understand where other people are coming from. And the other thing too, if you're arguing with somebody and you understand where they're coming from, they'll be a little more, they'll listen to you a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
More receptive.
Yeah. Yes, more receptive. Exactly. If you guys are just in a shouting match putting each other down, then nobody gets away. Nobody hears anybody.
Yeah. And that's why I think Judge Benitez did the right thing in this case, knowing full well that by not doing anything would probably end with a higher appeals court, just issuing a statement without looking through anything, without allowing anyone to prepare further case preparation. And again, I don't know the whole appeals court process and things like that, but obviously what this does for now is allows us as California citizens to to possess high capacity magazines or standard capacity magazines. Sorry, I keep doing that. I've been brainwashed by living in California for too long. But for us to possess standard capacity magazines, assuming that they were purchased during this time period.
Yeah. So and you know, I think what happens is if Judge Benitez does not issue the stay, California is just going to come back and try to pass something even more ridiculous.
Right. And so I think that I think that it was a great step for Second Amendment
Yes.
Proponents basically for him to have ruled it unconstitutional, allowed so many magazines to enter the state, and I don't know the numbers. I don't think anyone really knows the numbers yet. I've heard hundreds of thousands. I've even heard into the millions of magazines were imported and sold into the state during this time period. But then he also did us a huge favor, as well as the other side, by issuing the stay, because I think that was really a true way for him to say, okay, we're both going to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
They're still going to be able to possess, but we're not going to let them purchase anymore. And we're going to figure this out. We're going to appeal this. We're going to go through the proper channels rather than just getting mad at one another and just passing, stuff, know?
I guess the way I look at it is there is no off switch.
Yeah.
There's no easy way to just say, okay, even though, I think it's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
There's no off switch to change the culture, and just everybody, in California is going to be okay with it and say, okay, well, that's what he ruled, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people that are up in arms, and even if I think they're wrong, And in this, and I don't want any of our listeners to think that I'm okay with the fact that it went back to the way that it was. I'm not. It is unconstitutional, and I feel that I'm totally entitled to my rights. However, in good faith of further progress on both sides. We're not giving up.
No, we are not giving up.
I'm not happy with this either.
But I understand why it was done, and it was done in good faith, not done in the fact that we were backing down. It was actually done to protect us, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those things that I think I saw a lot of. But to continue kind of on that note. What were some of the things that kind of you saw, read, heard during this last week? I mean, I just feel like social media. I like social media, but I'm not super addicted to it. I don't really post a whole lot on personal pages and things like that. But I have to say, I spent more time on social media this last week than I probably have in a long time.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting to see how supportive some of the people could be. And we did talk about Mr. Guns and Gear and earlier in this episode, and it was pretty neat to see him rooting for California so much.
Absolutely, yeah, that was pretty awesome. And what was really cool was when it first started, and he first published a few things. It kind of blew my mind. Like, wow, this. Mr. Guns and Gear is this just a huge figure in the gun community, and he's from back east in a state that doesn't have a lot of the same issues. Actually, I don't think hardly any of the same issues that we have here, which is amazing for him, and that's really cool. But for him to really take so much time and effort and so much of his platform that he's built for himself and for the gun community, but to take all that time out of his own schedule to do all of that for us as Californians.
I think the major difference between someone like him and like the retailers is the retailers are making a profit.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they're being selfish and they only care about the profit.
A lot of them were selling as close to cost as they could to help us out.
And but a guy like Mr. Guns and Gear has no dog in the fight, to be honest. Like what does he care if California's can buy magazines or not? I mean, obviously he cares just because he knows what he probably knows. Yeah, what it would,
it's like the trickle down effect.
Yeah, he knows what it'd be like if he couldn't own what he wanted to own.
And so it was really cool to see him. And then like I said, when he first started coming out with a lot of the videos and informative posts and letting us know, okay, now I've spoken specifically with this retailer, they're going to start shipping to California. I was on the phone with this retailer, they're going to start shipping to California. I got in touch with these guys, they're going to ship to California. That was really cool. And it was really cool to see all the people from across the nation going, what the heck is going on in California? We didn't even know about this, or we knew about this, like crazy. This is crazy, awesome for you guys. But what was really cool is as the week progressed, I began to start seeing people in the comments and in the thread, the feeds of all these different social media outlets going, I'm not ordering anything from these sites for the next week, so that way Californians can get their orders processed. And it was really cool to see people from other states start going, Californians, put in your order. We're not ordering anything this week. You get it done.
Yeah, kind of come together, you know?
Yeah, as a nation. And to me, that was really cool. That was just like, it kind of blew my mind knowing that people were going like, hey, I'm not ordering mags this week. You guys go for it.
Yeah, it's weird because, you know, a lot of people know that I have the podcast and stuff, and so a lot of people were asking me directly, you know, hey, what is this true? And you know, so that really made me kind of look into it a little bit more. Because when Ryan and I first talked about it, like I said, he was probably the first one that I actually talked about it with, and that's when I was originally thinking that it was just they're talking about the grandfathered in ones. It has nothing to do with. Are you kidding me? We're gonna be California? Are you serious?
Well,
do you know where you live?
And the proximity of it to, and I know this is so stupid, but the proximity of it to April Fool's Day, April 1st, kind of was like, had me going like, okay, maybe this is like just the most elaborate April Fool's prank, like on Second Amendment supporters.
And for me, you know, in my personal life, I had a lot of things going on. This was actually probably one of the worst weeks for something like this to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have a lot of free time to
me as well.
To go out and try to get anything. So, you know, I didn't have a lot of time to really focus on it. You know, it was. But I started getting so many questions, and even from. I have friends that live out of state, and I got a text from one of my friends that used to live in California. Now he doesn't, you know, asking me, is this for real? You know, what I'm hearing, you know, are you guys free?
Same with me. I had quite a few friends that text me or called me and said, hey, are you seeing this? You know, I know. You're a gun enthusiast. I'm a gun enthusiast. You know, what do we do? What do I need to know about this? And it's kind of weird. I've never ever thought of myself as an authority on any of it. I still don't. But yet everyone was turning to the two of us and asking us, what's going on? You know.
You know, I just think they know that we care about it.
Right.
So,
yeah, and they know that we're willing to actually sit down and read things too. You know. But yeah, same for me. It was a really tough week for it to have happened. I had a lot going on in my personal life. Nothing bad, but just very busy.
Yeah, just busy.
And so
this isn't my main job.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it was pretty crazy as I'm, you know, going through it, looking it up for some friends, you know, from around town, and even had some people from out of state, both family and friends, letting me know, hey, I saw this. Is this real? Is what's going on? I have no idea. And so it was really, really cool to be able to go, oh yeah, this is what I know about it, but obviously do your fact checking and then, you know, and it was really neat to see everyone's different interpretation of things. Mm-hmm. And I think for me that was pretty cool too, to see everyone really getting involved with, let's research it and look it up. And I mean, you know, there was a lot of people online that were providing opinions, and it was just really cool to see so many people coming together. Again, even tons of people that aren't even from California putting in their input of, hey guys, let's, you know, maybe you should look into this or that, or you know, go ahead and put in your orders. We're not ordering anything. We want you guys to make sure that you get freedom, and all the memes and posts and pictures. I mean, it was just. It was amazing. It was really, really, really cool to see the gun community come together.
Consumed the gun community for a week.
Yeah.
You know,
it still kind of is. It's been over for a day now, and people are still talking about it.
Yeah, my social media feed on my personal account is, you know, a lot of the same gun stuff. Yeah. That's, you know, like at the Smoke the Podcast account, but. You know, so you just scroll through and you're like, man, this is really taking over right now. Yeah. It's such big news, and it was exciting while it lasts, and that's why I'm talking about the roller coaster. You know. Yeah. I from the beginning don't want to be a pessimist, but I figured that it would come to an end soon.
Yeah.
But I also think that a lot of Californians did too, because that's why they went out and bought so many.
Right. Yeah, and we saw on social media, and I even saw in person at at a few stores. Just the amount of long lines, the just crazy. I mean, it was like Black Friday for the gun community, but for a whole week. Mm-hmm. In fact, the morning that the Saturday morning, so the day after it had kind of published, I don't think they did the press release on Friday night until late in the evening. Uh-huh. So it really didn't start surfacing until Saturday, which was the 30th, I believe. No, the 30th, right?
Saturday was the 30th.
Yeah, the 30th. And I happened to stop in at a local gun shop just to pick up some parts for one of my AR builds, and was just blown away by the amount of people in there. I had already read the story over my cup of coffee that morning and had gone in there, and it was just wall-to-wall people, and the guy behind the counter is like, hey, it just came out last night, we have no news, like, our lawyers are on it, corporate's trying to figure out what to do, like, I promise as soon as we have something, we're gonna flood social media with it, we'll send out emails, like, we'll do whatever we have to do to make sure that you guys know. But as of right now, I mean, this literally happened less than 24 hours ago, and
like most things that happen, a lot of people just don't know what to do. So you go to the store, and then once you think about it, you're like, okay, well, how can I really expect them to have magazines
overnight?
Within 12 hours of an announcement.
And when I'm sure, I know one of the employees had mentioned, he goes, I didn't even hear about it until I got to work this morning, mm-hmm. And they're like, it's not like we have a bunch of high or standard capacity magazines in the back room that we can now just start flooding out now that it's legal, and he goes, it's not like we got bazookas and other stuff back there that have been illegal for years that we're waiting for the day that they become legal, and we're just flooding the shelves with
automatics and everything back
No,
there.
It wasn't like that at all. And so it was really, really quite interesting to see that. And then that same day is when things just started blowing up on social media. It was pretty cool to see a lot of the big name, people like Colion Noir was posting about it on mm-hmm. his page, and he's a huge representative for the NRA, and all of the NRA supporters were out there, the California Rifle and Pistol and Rifle, whatever.
Yeah.
But a lot of these pro...
CPRA,
CPRA, a lot of these pro-gun groups started posting about it. Again, Mr. Guns and Gear, but there were a lot of other California-based social media guys that were posting about it. It's just insane to see Saturday how it started out with one or two little articles to by the evening, my entire feed was literally, I could probably have sat there for 10 minutes just reading articles on it and watching videos and things like that. And then not only that, but the amount of guys, again, we keep pointing out Mr. Guns and Gear, but it was because he was posting some of the best deals out there too.
Which he always does.
Which he always does, and we thank him so much for that. My bank account doesn't, but I do. But it was just really cool to be able to see, okay, these people are, I know there were a few websites, Brownells, Palmetto State Armory, all had banners on their website that freedom in California, we're sending freedom to California, and so it was just really neat to see all of that. A lot of the stores hired, like we said earlier, hired temporary employees to help sell. Some of them were even transporting these magazines by whatever vehicles they had available.
Yeah, it seemed like their own personal vehicles.
It seemed like their own personal vehicles, and it just seemed like they were just driving back and forth from warehouses. And I don't know, but Magpul got on it and just had hundreds of thousands of PMAG shipped in, mm-hmm. and the downside, the one thing that I can say was an absolute downside to the whole thing was that there was just such a limited selection, but you can't really expect much in a week.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the magazines for very specific calibers and specific pistols and the models that weren't so popular weren't really being sold just because they couldn't get their hands on mass quantities of them. And so that was definitely frustrating for a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is. So.
Yeah, for me, I know if I would have put up a little extra effort, I could have definitely got some 30-round magazines for my AR, and but that wasn't my my primary focus. I wanted some pistol magazines because that's a little more important to me.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say one way or the other if I participated or not participated in any of it. I'm also not going to say that some of what I may or may not have been looking for was really hard to find. So that being said, again, not saying one way or the other,
Yeah.
but it was a great week.
Yeah, it was a big week for a lot of people. Really, a lot of people were able to get their hands on what they needed, and I'm glad for that.
Yeah. The other thing, and this isn't in any of the notes that I had kind of prepared or even looked over, but something that was stated on social media by multiple people and multiple outlets is the fact that the more magazines that entered the state during this time period, the more it contributes to things like common use, which is a legal term set in certain cases back, and it's legal precedent basically that the things that are very common use should be available to all. And so that's one of the really good defenses for Second Amendment supporters is that, well, the rest of the nation has them, or they're so common that there's no reason to really have a restriction on them.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool because this really did help to build the common use, and it also just shows that we still have fight here. I know that there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years of just how tough it's been getting in California, and almost from a lot of other states saying, man, California's a lost cause and it's California and you guys, just got to get out of the state. And so that was kind of what I thought I was going to see a lot of this week. And like I said, I was pleasantly surprised with the fact that there was just so much support for us.
Yeah, and maybe the manufacturers can see that they have such a huge market out here that's kind of being wasted, and hopefully they'll put a little more effort into helping us out.
Lobbying or doing what they need to do. I'm pretty sure Magpul probably made more in sales in the last week than they probably have in a long time. And so yeah, that was really, really cool to see, and it was insane seeing even I know there were a lot of people posting that they were buying magazines for guns that they don't even own yet, and things like that. And so that was pretty crazy. It was really, really it was really awesome just to see all that come together.
Yeah, it was like I said a couple of times, it was a roller coaster.
It was. Yeah, there was that skeptical, I don't know, I was skeptical when I read the article, or before I started reading the article. Then I was like, oh my gosh, this is true. I reread it and I was like, I think this is true. And then kind of got deflated a little bit when I talked to you. And then I was like, I've read part of it to you over the phone, and I'm like, no, this is what it says. It's got to be. And then by Saturday evening, I was like, okay, it's for real. And so yeah, it was pretty funny.
Well, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I am just so pleasantly surprised and just so pleased with the amount of support that our state got this week.
Felt good.
It felt really good to finally feel like we can contribute to some of the gun posting and things like that. I always feel like things get posted, it's like, well, handgun roster, can't look at that.
Yep.
Oh, high capacity magazine ban, can't look at that. Featureless AR, can't look at that. And so. So yeah, that was one of those things where I was just sitting there going like, man, this is really cool to be able to look at that and go, oh, I can buy that.
Well, I'll say, and not to be a downer, but I just want to mention that my interpretation of the California assault rifle classification, which for those of you who don't know, the non-featureless, the pistol grip,
the mag-lock style.
Mag-lock style. If you have that style of
an AR-15
that has a bullet button, that's a registered assault rifle.
It's not a bullet button. It's
no. Well, bullet
button too.
Yes. Okay. No, bullet button. If you have a bullet button, you have to register as an assault rifle.
Right.
If you have the mag-lock, it doesn't.
I thought we don't talk about
that's completely
the
different.
people who've registered.
The only reason why I'm bringing that up is I believe that in that law, it clearly states the 10-round magazine rule, and you cannot use the 30-rounders or the larger capacity.
You convert to featureless.
Unless you convert to featureless.
Which was also my interpretation, and I believe quite a few of the California gun companies and stores and manufacturers all felt the same way. Now, there's a lot of people out of state that don't even know anything about those laws, which is why we did our episode on featureless versus maglock versus the old registry style or whatever. But I think you're absolutely right.
So if you have a maglock style or I don't even know how you would register as a assault rifle.
You can't anymore. But if you had
Yeah.
registered prior to the deadline,
then I would
highly caution you.
Yeah, no, I would just encourage you to look it up for yourself and make your own judgment.
And until then, I would highly caution you just not
Yeah.
even to have anything in
Yeah,
in
because
there.
it's not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
But yeah,
That's
no,
something
and
I
that's
wanted to
that's actually not a. I know you said it's kind of a downer, but that's actually not. It's we're looking out for everybody as best we can and as
Yeah.
best we can interpret. So I think that's actually really good. So I'm glad you added that in there.
You want to take a revisit on this cigar?
Yeah, let's revisit the cigar for sure. Again, same thing. Have not. Sorry, we're recording outside right now.
Yeah, we don't smoke inside the house.
We don't.
So,
Yeah.
So we got like a little airplane going by. Or
Yeah, there's a little local airport, and so I think that's a plane that's flying by. So if you ever hear anything in the background, planes, lawnmowers, dogs, people at the park. Or
yeah, we're
whatever.
literally just sitting in the backyard smoking a cigar and talking.
Yeah, so if you ever hear that, that's why. If you're ever like, why on earth have I been hearing all these weird sound effects in the backyard? Like, why would they put all that in there? That's why. But anyways, as I was saying, this cigar is just really, really, really good. It's staying lit. It's one that honestly I probably would buy it in a Robusto. The Churchill's a tad long for me, which is kind of funny considering I like to smoke quite a bit, but I'm not even through the second, third yet.
Yeah, and I would add. I think the strength might be mild because I don't feel any effects. And
we'll see when we stand up.
This
but
is
yeah,
a pretty long cigar.
it is.
But pretty flavorful.
It was a great choice for tonight, just because we were able to smoke it slowly and really just dive into the topic, though.
Yeah, and just to revisit the whiskey real quick, it's Maker's Mark.
It has mellowed out with the ice melting.
I don't ever drink it straight. I don't really mix bourbons too much, but Maker's Mark, ginger ale, and bitters is one of my favorite drinks. So to drink it straight, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not really surprising. It's kind of just your basic bourbon. It's not really too much. It's not really too interesting.
Yeah, I would agree. There's not a whole lot to it. It's definitely a classic bourbon.
Yeah.
It just tastes like a classic bourbon. I think I could drink it on the rocks. I probably won't. If I mix whiskey, it's usually just with Coke, Coca-Cola, and that's how I like it. That's probably how I would prefer to drink Maker's Mark. Surprisingly, we haven't done it on this podcast yet, but I know we will. But I prefer to drink Jim Beam straight over Maker's Mark if I had to drink one or the other.
Ooh.
Which is funny because Jim Beam is cheaper, and I don't know. I don't mind it. And then it's just a simple American bourbon. It's good.
All right. Well, follow us Facebook, Smoke the Podcast. Instagram at Smoke the Podcast. We appreciate everybody listening. Our 10th episode is complete. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, and have a good night. Yeah, I thought that. I think we had a lot to talk about.